Here's what Saint Germain says about in the I Am discourses. The moment doubt begins to enter, more doubt rushes in. The same with the I Am. If you put your attention upon it, it rushes forth more and more. Where the conscious attention is fixed, there the energy pours. Dear ones, says Saint Germain, do you not see, when you want something revealed or to be inspired in some way, do you not see, I am that? The moment you say I am, you set in motion this power that has inherent within it all these faculties. It has all substance and must take on whatever form the attention of the mind is fixed on. The I am, the name of God, is the fathomless mind of God. In reaching for understanding, the average student is but contracting the recurring memory of that which has been, instead of going into the heart of God and bringing forth that which never has been. Individuals and students many times do not and will not realize that there have been many civilizations of vast attainments which are entirely unknown to the outer world today. Atlantis and Lemuria, or the land of Mu, as credited by a few today, are but fragments of the great civilizations that have been. Like, we get this idea that it's all now in this world that we're in and it never existed before. To do unusual things, the students who wish to do this take the determined stand, I am the heart of God, and I now bring forth ideas and accomplishments which it has never been brought forth before. Consider only, I am that which I wish to bring forth. The I am presence is the heart of God. You are immediately in the great silence the moment you say I am. If you recognize that you are the I am, that whatever you declare is manifest in that moment. So, when I think about why it is that people aren't able to create the kind of miracles that this group is going to be able to create after we disperse, it's that we have to make our number one relationship, our number one priority, the number one thing in my life. I was talking about this yesterday over and over again with people, with individual people, that my number one relationship in my life, at this point in my life, is my relationship to God, my relationship to my source. It's number one. It's above my relationship to my children. It's above my relationship to any of you, but people that I teach, to people, individuals in my life that I love. My number one relationship, and your number one relationship, needs to be this I am presence that is within you, that is within each and every one of us. And when you can do this, the reason people can't do it is because our identification is so strongly tied into what our senses have told us about our life. There is a place and a possibility that miraculous things can happen, but you have to, in order to banish the doubt, in order to heal this energy body that I'm speaking about here, in order to be, you have to be in such a position that you're not asking. You're not coming from a ordinary place asking someone extraordinary to do something for you. That's sort of what we've learned in our religious model, that God is outside of us, something like a cosmic bellboy, that if we just sort of ask it to do something for us and we behave and we pay a certain amount of money and we go to the right temples and we do the right things, that this external being will then provide us with favors, and that this God has the ability to heal, but it withholds it depending upon what mood it's in and so on. And that's a very different concept that I'm talking about here. I'm talking about a concept of God that says that we are all pieces of God. Like T.S. Eliot said, we shall not cease from exploring. And at the end of all of our exploring will be to return to the place from which we originated and to know it for the first time, to know it. You don't have to die to do this. You can know it here. You can know it now. You can say to yourself, as the I Am discourses say over and over and over again, the I Am is the divine work of God. And you are capable of saying I am. And you don't want to add anything after I am that isn't consistent or harmonious or in rapport with God. That is the all-creating knowing, the all-knowingness. We all know everything. There's a higher self within each and every one of us. There's a highest self which is omniscient and omnipotent, all-powerful, and everywhere at once.
Mindfulness just is, here's one of the Thich Nhat Hanh's quotes. He says, "Walk as if you are kissing the earth with your feet." It's a practice of putting your mind and your consciousness onto exactly where you are in the moment and being able to find beauty. It's one of the great teachings that I learned as a young man is that looking at beauty in the world is the very first step in purifying the mind. To be able to find beauty. I remember the story I told of Viktor Frankl when I was with him in 1978 on a panel in Vienna. The great Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, and he said that they would give. We had lunch after that, just the two of us. I was very, very touched, and it was one of the most memorable moments of my life. And he said to me, when we were given a bowl of dirty water with a floating fish head in it, and that was our protein for the day. And he said you had to be able to find a way to find beauty in that. He said when we're challenged with circumstances over which we have absolutely no control, that we're challenged to change ourselves. And instead of looking at this as poor me and this shouldn't be happening and isn't this awful, but looking at it in terms of this is where I am. This is where I am in this moment. And in this moment, I'm going to find beauty in this and be in a state of appreciation for this fish, for it's giving its life to me. It's allowing me to survive and so on. And he said the people, he told me, and I'll never forget this, he said the people in the concentration camps, this was in Auschwitz, in Poland, he said the people who couldn't find beauty in the circumstances that they were in, the horrible circumstances that they were in, he said they would always perish. He said, you've got to be able to see beauty. The famous line from John Keats in Ode on a Grecian Urn, beauty is truth, and truth is beauty. That's all you need to know on earth. That's all you know on earth, and all you need to know. And so that this ability, and that's what mindfulness is. It's walking on the earth and kissing the ground with your feet with each step that you take and becoming aware of it. He talks frequently about being able to find beauty in just drying a dish. Yeah, a lot of times people sit down, and while they're while they're sitting down for a meal, they're already thinking about what they're going to have for dessert, and instead of just being there in this moment. If this is the appetizer and this is the bite that I'm taking, and this is what I'm tasting in this moment, and to find beauty in virtually everything that there is in you. It's this way of making the mind pure.
Every beauty which is seen here below, down here below, by persons of perception resembles more than anything else that celestial source from which we all come. Isn't that great? Every beauty that we see resembles more than anything else that source. We're talking about source, connecting to source, from which we all come. Do you see beauty? Do you see it more or less in your life? Can you find it in a homeless person urinating on the street? Can you find beauty in a cockroach? As you reach higher levels of consciousness, you begin to see, not only do you see beauty everywhere and in everything, you begin to recognize it as truth.
And, you can look around, whoever you are, listening wherever you are on this planet right now. Look out your window, or look to your right, or look to your left, wherever you are, in a little room someplace, or sitting on a beach somewhere, or driving in your car, or whatever it may be, and just look around. What I want to say to all of you is that, the very first step in purifying your mind and moving into higher levels of consciousness, and recognizing the eternal, infinite consciousness that you are, is to look at beauty in the world and see it in as many places as you can. And if you're a writer, you write a poem about it. I mean, there's 3 or 4 poems in there right now that and if I were if Rumi were here listening, and maybe he is, maybe that was Rumi, because I have such a love affair with his poetry. Maybe it was Rumi walking across my balcony on the railing, saying, "Find beauty in me." Just one of the strangest experiences that I've had, and that all came from Thich Nhat Hanh. And since we had that experience, and since I was reading him this week, I've been finding beauty in everything, in every little bird that flies by, and every person that's out there, and every wave that shows up, and so on.
You see, when you get enough inner grace, or inner peace, or serenity, whatever you want to call it, and you feel really positive about yourself, it's almost impossible for you to be controlled and manipulated by anybody else. I'll give you an example. Just yesterday, I had to get on an airplane and fly to Chicago. Now, I got on the airplane at 1 o'clock in the afternoon in Fort Lauderdale. The plane took off and flew for 30 minutes, and they couldn't retract the landing gear. They were stuck in the down position, so they had to land the plane in Miami, go back and land it in Miami, because they had longer runways. It wasn't an emergency, but I wasn't convinced that they had that foam out there on the runways, because they were just seeing if their foam equipment worked. They were trying to convince us there was no emergency, and that those ambulances weren't just standing by in case anybody fainted while they watched us land, that there was, in fact, some emergency. I watched people around me on the plane when we were having to do this, and some people were panicked and fearful and scared. There was one couple that jumped and screamed, and there was a lot of interesting reactions, a lot of ashen looks, and a lot of very scared people. And I looked at myself, and I didn't have any of that. I didn't have any of that. It was okay, and I knew I was going to be okay, and I saw myself being okay. It wasn't that I tried very hard not to be fearful. It was that inside of me, there is something that has replaced that fear, and that is called grace or serenity, and it was okay. It was just simply all right, and I was fine. In fact, I was effective. I calmed down the guy next to me. I looked around to see where the emergency exits were, because I wanted to know how to get out of this place. I used my mind in a situation where other people might elect panic. I was electing to be conscious, to be intelligent, to save myself if necessary, and I wasn't the least bit afraid. And I know I would have been afraid at an earlier time in my life. That fear, that potential for fear, has been replaced by peace and fulfillment, and knowing that when it's my turn, and that's okay too, and that I'm not afraid of any of that. So we landed, okay, and everything was fine. And there was a computer part that was missing that wouldn't give the right signal for the landing gear to go up, so they had to replace the part, and they canceled the flight. And 192 people were on this plane, and it was full. Right? There wasn't an empty seat. It was the last week after Easter break. There's no seats out of South Florida at all. Right? They announced, the first thing they did was announce that there would be nobody getting a seat out of South Florida, because you just can't get one on all the airlines. They're all filled up. And you probably will have to be here a couple of days until we can do something about it. And they even announced that they weren't going to put us up in a hotel. There was like all these negative things. And I watched the people around me. Now, a minute ago, they were worried about whether they were going to be alive. Now, suddenly, they're alive, and they're relieved about that. Now they're angry because the plane isn't going to take off, or they're going to have a replacement. And so there's all this anger. Now, I believe in looking for solutions, never looking for problems. So when the plane landed, they said, no one can get off the airplane. But I knew they probably weren't talking to me. Okay? because as soon as it landed, the door opened, I went out and called my secretary and said, I have to give a speech tomorrow morning in Chicago, and there's a lot of people depending on me to be there. There's 500 people waiting to hear me speak, and we've set up this date in advance. I see myself in Chicago. I know I'll be there. 191 other people didn't believe they would be in Chicago and acted just that way. They were angry, they were upset, they were yelling at the people, they were letting their blood pressure get out of control, and they weren't doing anything. I said to my secretary, I will call you back in 15 minutes. She was in Fort Lauderdale. I'll call you back collect in 15 minutes. Just make sure I have a seat on a plane, no matter what it costs or what the inconvenience or what it get me a seat. At the moment that she called, somebody the moment before had canceled on another airline a first-class seat. They had just canceled, said they weren't going. And I was able to get that seat because the person that she called handled the cancellation, and she just replaced me on there, okay, instead of going through the whole list. And I had a seat on a flight that was 5 hours away, but I still had a seat on a flight to get in much later than I anticipated. And I went down and got my boarding pass, and I was, out of 192 people, there was only one that made it to Chicago. And I was that one, not because I'm smarter than everybody else, or because I know anything that other people don't know, or because I'm better than anyone else. It was because I look for solutions, not for problems, and I refuse to be victimized by my need to be right through using anger and being upset and so on. When you are able to visualize yourself doing something, you start acting on that visualization or that image. You're able to make things happen when you're looking for solutions that you can never make happen when you're more preoccupied with being a victim.
Your conscious mind, as you go to sleep, is capable of impressing your great I am upon your subconscious mind, which is a sliver of the one all-creating subconscious mind. This one mind never sleeps because it is infinite and therefore everywhere and in everything, and it is always in the process of creating and manifesting. Throughout those hours while your conscious mind is resting, your subconscious mind is receiving and processing all that you've downloaded into it and getting ready to turn its impressions into form and circumstance. In his book, The Biology of Belief, my good friend Bruce Lipton puts this phenomenon of the conscious and subconscious mind into the language of modern technology using this metaphor. Quote, in reality, the subconscious is an emotionless database of stored programs whose function is strictly concerned with reading environmental signals and engaging in hardwired behavioral programs, no questions asked, no judgments made. The subconscious mind is a programmable hard drive into which our life experiences are downloaded, unquote. So here you are lying in your bed about to enter into your unconscious state where your subconscious mind is most at home. In Bruce Lipton's analogy, there's a computer ready and waiting to get to work as soon as you doze off and leave your conscious mind behind. As you lie there, what you say to yourself as an I am is what you download into the computer. The computer I'm using to stand in for the one universal subconscious mind is so vast that it has no beginning and no end, and everything exists within it. If everything exists within it, and it is infinite, that means you exist within it as well, and it must respond to what you load into it. It cannot sleep. It's too busy turning conscious impressions into form and circumstance. All you have to do is understand this power is within you and be in a state of gratitude for your highest self, which is God. Remember those three magic words. You are God. There is only one subconscious mind, and your own subconscious mind is a part of that one mind. That invisible part of you is really the mind of God at work, as long as you don't edge God out. That's ego, which is what your conscious mind has probably been trained to do. If your subconscious mind receives your conviction that you have money, you will have money. If it receives the conviction that I am happy, I am healthy, I am content, I am love, I am wise, or any other statement downloaded with conviction, the subconscious mind will bring it into your physical reality. I am not suggesting that you have hope or tell yourself maybe or use the last 5 minutes awake to say, I will be happy, I will be prosperous, I hope to one day be content. Use the name that God gave to Moses as he described who he is. I am that. I am. This is where faith plays a decisive role. You must extinguish any thought that being one with God is impossible. That is the false self at work. the contaminated personal subconscious that receives toxic self-limiting ideas and turns them into your unfulfilled reality. You are one with the one universal subconscious mind of God that never sleeps and works for you while your conscious mind slumbers. You want it to work for you, using what you downloaded into it, even as you are in deep sleep. While you sleep, your subconscious mind works. One of my spiritual teachers, Omram Mikhail Ivanov, the Bulgarian mystic philosopher and one of the founders of the Universal White Brotherhood, has this to say about your preparation for sleep and what transpires while you sleep. Quote, "It is the experiences of the last minutes before you go to sleep that are more important, more significant than anything that happened during the day." Unquote. He speaks eloquently on the importance of entering the subconscious mind with a purity of spirit, because each night we die, and if we don't know how to prepare for our nightly death, we will be prepared for our true departure to the other world. Quote, "Take care, therefore," he urges us, "never to go to sleep with negative thoughts in your mind, for they will destroy all the good you may have gained during the day." Unquote. Your time while asleep, when you leave this house and yet are still attached to it, is to be thought of as a sacred journey that you take daily to connect to the one universal subconscious mind and experience the bewildering wonder of what transpires there. Once again, Ivanov tells us, quote, "Before going to sleep, you must get ready as though for a sacred pilgrimage. Never go to bed with a negative thought in your head, for it will wreak havoc in your subconscious." Unquote. In those 8 or so hours that you are embedded in your subconscious mind, you receive instruction. The feelings you brought to your sleep time will be expressed tomorrow and in all of your tomorrows. This is a time when you leave behind the constrictions of your physical world and the limitations of your physical body. You allow the one subconscious mind to create your wishes without active participation from your solid material self. I cannot describe to you precisely how your subconscious mind works while you sleep, nor can anyone give you this kind of detail. As Neville puts it so succinctly, quote, "The subconscious receives impressions only through the feelings of man, and in a way known only to itself, gives these impressions form and expression." Unquote. Who can describe the intricacies of a caterpillar weaving its own chrysalis and then emerging as a beautiful butterfly? It is a mystery known only to the one mind, as is how a subconscious impression turns into a hardened fact. But you can be cognizant of the many mysterious things you do while asleep, all the while believing them to be true and experiencing them in your body, even though you are unconscious. I only ask you to enjoy the mysterious and know that it is full of potential. Wallow in it, and when you do, you open yourself up to infinite possibilities.
Everything that's in the universe vibrates. Everything. So we've got a microphone here, and if you take this microphone and you look at it under a real strong microscope, you'll see that it's alive. It's a dance. It's got electrons in it, and they're all moving very fast. But they're moving at such a speed that the naked eye perceives them to be solid. They're vibrating at what we call just below the speed of light. So it appears to be solid. But we know that it isn't solid. They're just vibrating at different levels. And where we stand, what we see, everything that we see appears to, some things appear to be solid, some are fluid, but we know that everything vibrates, right? So there's a vibration in the universe. And a lot of it we can't get at, but it doesn't mean it's not there. We can't get a hold of it. And so you look at just various vibrational levels that are in the universe.
Think of the relationships that you're in right now. All the relationships that you're in. Your husband, your wife, your children, your grandparents, the people that you work with, and just close your eyes just for a moment and understand they're not here. You are here alone right now. What is it that constitutes the relationship that you have with everyone else in your life? Just thought. That's all. It's just thought. What is it that constitutes everything that has happened to you up until this moment right now? Thought. Wispy thoughts. You can't get a hold of them, you can't grab them, you can't smell them, you can't experience them. You think about your wife, or you think about your child, or your husband, And you understand that when you see another human being, what you are seeing is thought. You are experiencing everyone that you experience through your mind. Not through your body, not through your mind. They're not here. And yet they are, aren't they? They're not here. And yet you're in a relationship with them, aren't you? Of course you are. But they're not here. You don't have them. You don't have any form. Everything you experience in life is thought. It's thought. And the beauty of that and the glory of this is that thought is yours to do anything you want with. And when you use your thought, which is your whole experience of everything on this planet, when you use your thought to violate the principles that hold the whole system together, which is love, which is harmony, which is cooperation, harmony with the component parts of who you are in cooperation with the parts next to you and the ones next to you and so on. That when you use your thought in this way, you can transcend your form and you can transcend anything else that gets in the way of your life being exactly what it ought to be. That is, its perfection, its fellowship with the perfection of the universe, by simply thinking as you are, in the perfection that you are. And that's all it takes. There's no more magic to it than that. You change your thought, which is your experience of everything, the way that you think. When the pureness of my thought, that is, when I stopped judging myself as a writer and worrying about how the words came out, and stopped being concerned about whether I sold books, and stopped being concerned about what other people were thinking of it, and just became the I am that I am, and allowed my thinking to be only love, I sat down to write Icus, and it was magic, real magic. A transcendent human being can be any miracle. And every one of you have that capacity within you to be any miracle that you want as soon as you unclog yourself of the way that you use your thought.
How can I apply the awareness of these thoughts and how I use my mind to make my life all that I want it to be? To bring into my life the things that are important to me, to improve the quality of my relationships, to have the success and so on that I think that I'm entitled to. And it's really getting to the point where you know that every thought that you have has a potential for coming into your life, for coming into form. You start to get real cautious about having anything in your mind that isn't going to work for you. And you begin to question why you would keep any of those thoughts.
If this source that we call God or soul or spirit, if it could speak, this is what it would sound like. And then later on, I'm going to talk to you about what it looks like. What does it look like? I am the source of all material and spiritual worlds. Everything emanates from me. That's what it sounds like. Everything emanates from me. So that means you. And that's why the words, with God all things are possible, means that when you find in your heart a way to reconnect to this, and remember what I talked about in those opening quotes, that this field of intention is a field that is only corroded because we take on something that separates us from the source. And that is called the ego. And the ego is really nothing more than an idea that we carry around. It's the source of virtually all of our problems. The only difficulty is you can't check into a hospital. Like if you got an appendix problem, you check in, get an appendectomy. There's no place that I know of that gives egoectomies. It would be nice, but it doesn't work that way. so that what you want to do is figure out a way to get rid of this idea that who I am is separate from this. And this is your source. And when you reconnect to your source, live in harmony with your source, you are connecting to the field of intention. And when you're with this field of intention, everything that this field of intention from which all material worlds emanate, everything that it can do, you can do, because you are it and it is you. The problems that we have is we've come to a place where we believe that we are separate from it. And so we start to believe that I am what I do, and I am what I have, and I am separate from everybody else, and I am my reputation, and I'm separate from what is missing in my life. But this field from which all things originate, if it's everywhere, it's got to be in you. And if it's everywhere and it has to be in you, it has to also be in everything that you perceive to be missing from your life. It has to be in that too, because there's no place that it's not. And if there's no place that it's not, you literally are already connected to everything that you would like to attract into your life. What keeps you from doing it is your belief that you're separate from your source. We want to reconnect to this source. People ask me the question, what about a free will? If I was intended here, and the shape of my life was intended here from this source, where does that leave me with a free will? Well, where it leaves you with a free will is this. You have a free will to decide whether or not you are going to connect or not connect to that source. That's your free will. If you make a choice, a conscious choice, to stay disconnected from it and believe that you are all of these things that I just illustrated in the ego, this field of intention doesn't know anything about non-well-being. It creates from a source of well-being. It doesn't know anything about fear, about anxiety, about worry. It just is in a constant state of creating. There's a quotation that goes like this: self-realization, which is really reconnecting to your source. Self-realization means that we have been consciously connected with our source of being. We are reconnected to this source, which I'm going to describe in detail in this program, what I believe the faces of intention look like. Once we have made this connection, then absolutely nothing can go wrong. That's from Swami Paramananda. Nothing can go wrong when you reconnect to source. All of our struggles, all of our illnesses, all of the scarcities in our life, all of the problems we have in our relationships, all of this stuff came about because we disconnected ourselves from a field of intention that is nothing but just well-being at work. It only wants you to be in a state of happiness.
So let's first examine this question of who you are. Who am I? Consider how many bodies you've occupied since birth. Who is the I that continues to leave one body behind and then enter another? You know for certain that you, the person that you call I, the one attempting to figure out who you are, started out in a little baby body weighing somewhere between 5 and 10 pounds. The I that is you fully entered and occupied that little baby body. Gradually you began to discard that baby body and move into a small toddler body that crawled, then it walked, and then it ran, and took on an entirely new appearance. Your 2-year-old self would find it difficult to recognize the baby body that you'd now completely abandoned. You lived in this toddler body for a while and then discarded it too, including every cell that was in your body at birth. The subsequent body you entered was a prepubescent body that bore a similarity to your toddler body, but was completely different. The I in the question still hasn't been discovered, but it's become absolutely clear that you are obviously not your body. Why? Because the I has remained, though it continuously sheds the body that it occupies. This strange phenomenon of you being an I that continuously enters, discards, and re-enters a new body has proceeded right up until this very moment. I am currently in a 71-year-old body that's nothing like the body I occupied 50 years ago. I remember well what that 20-year-old body I occupied looked like and what it could do and what it knew and what it didn't know, but I can't find it anywhere. It's simply an illusion. It's gone from this physical world, as is every body that both you and I have occupied in our entire lifetime. The I that I use to describe myself is not so obsessed that he insists upon staying only in one body. In fact, the I that is me finally recognizes the ancient spiritual truth spoken by divine masters since antiquity. None of us are really doing anything. Rather, we, that is our bodies, are merely being done. What is your body being done by? An invisible, organizing intelligence that takes the cells of your body, changes them into new cells, and discards the old cells. The I that you think you are observes the entire process, for the most part, helplessly. The physical body that you think of as you is rearranged in a pattern designed by a formless intelligence independent of your opinion. This I that you use to describe yourself isn't the physical form that you occupy and take with you everywhere. Quantum physics states that the body you're occupying, which is listening to these words right now, is completely different from the body you were in when you listened to the previous paragraph. Such is the nature of the physical world in which we all live. The ancient philosopher Heraclitus put it this way several thousand years ago, and it's true today. Quote, "All things are in motion and nothing is at rest. You cannot go into the same river twice." Unquote. A river is a constantly changing phenomenon, as is a tree, a mountain, a goat, a human, and the entire physical universe, including Earth. That which defines a thing, therefore, is not physical in nature, it's metaphysical. When asked what is real, an ancient spiritual avatar responded without hesitation, "That is real, which never changes." And since your body is in a continuous state of change, it really isn't real, according to this definition. If you try to find that toddler body you once occupied, you realize that it's not real, since it no longer exists. Even while you were in it years ago, you couldn't call it real, because the moment you pinpointed and defined it as real, it would be something else, something new. What you're calling real would already have disappeared. Still, you know with all of this change taking place that there is a changeless component to who you are. The I in that toddler body hasn't changed. It's in the body that you currently occupy. The I is your higher self, changeless and real. This higher self is who you are. When you make this discovery and consciously befriend the I that you are, nothing is impossible. Keep in mind that if it is changing, it's not real. The I in the question, "Who am I?" isn't anything that involves the physical you, since that continuously changes and disappears. Therefore, to answer the question, "Who am I?" with any reference to your body and its various talents, accomplishments, accumulations, or physical prowess, is to define yourself as unreal. Who you are, then, must be changeless, and therefore birthless, as well as deathless. Who you are is a formless energy, a spirit, if you will, with the capacity to be unchanged and at the same time occupy an infinity of bodies. Think about this. It is truly a bewildering phenomenon. You are changeless and therefore real. What you've believed were facts explaining who you are simply illusions, or what metaphysicians call unreal. You're not an American, an Italian, or an African. You're not a male or a female, a Democrat or a Republican. You're one with the true oneness, God. You are not athletic or magical, mathematical or literary, or any other label. Transcending labels, particularly those that have been placed on you by others in your past, opens you to the opportunity of soaring in the now in any way that you desire. You can be all things at any present moment in your life. When this divine intelligence is limitless and without boundaries and is who we are, is just one of those absurd notions that tells us that it is our lower identities that who we are, rather than that which is noticing and watching it and living in it and is ageless and timeless and formless.